know how this is going to come across, but I feel like because I have a really big passion for what I do, I don't do it half-heartedly, if that makes sense. So people are buying into a service, but they're buying into something more in terms of what I'm offering them, because you can't really go to someone and speak to them at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, do you know what I mean? Which is something that I do. Not that I have to, but I just do it.
Situation normally, right?
I do, but I'm pretty conscious now that I can't do any speaking.
Because you're going to take them off.
Yeah.
What about this one here? I mean, this is silk. No, this is 800.
So I picked this fabric up last week along with some of the samples. My client actually came over the weekend just to have a look at the samples that I picked up for her to choose one for her dress. So this is the one that she chose, but we're trying to find it at the moment. And trying to find white fabric in fabric stores like picking up a needle in a haystack.
Both sides, really,
So
either side.
we've just been trying our luck to find it, but it seems to have disappeared. So hopefully, the guy who usually is here is not here, and he knows where everything is. So I think it might just take us a little bit longer to find. But hopefully that'll be very soon.
No, I can ring them up and find out while you're here.
I tell you what, shall I cut off a little bit of this and keep the other one with you?
No, I don't. I would ordinarily.
This is the truly glamorous side of being a designer. For everyone who thinks it's all frills and wearing nice things, there's actually a lot of hard work involved as well. And part of that is carrying fabrics. I don't take on more than I can handle, so a lot of people will take on amounts of big quantities, so I do things, you know, exactly like you said, where you want to keep to the quality as opposed to taking on too much work and not keeping to the standards that you initially set out doing. And that's the most important thing. I don't know whether my age has something to do with it, because some people will probably presume that somebody who's not been doing something for so long couldn't have gathered enough skills to be able to do things from scratch and then execute them well. And I still get that today. I mean, it's not something that I put out there. I don't openly say that, oh, my dresses are completely made, like bespoke made, but I presume that through the images that I do post, like on social media, and the processes in terms of like collecting the fabrics, making the toiles, having the clients come in for their fittings, I feel that's enough to kind of build an idea of what it is that I actually do. To be honest, in terms of like people hating, not that I would ever use that word, do you know what? This is really weird, but I don't leave room for any of my clients to be unhappy. I don't know, I've never been on the receiving end of anyone disliking my work, and I guess if anyone does dislike my work, everybody's entitled to their own taste of what they prefer. So, if somebody has something to say about my work, then I'd rather take that on board as positive criticism as opposed to thinking that I'm at a level where I can't take criticism. Like, I'm constantly learning new things every day. My next step would be to employ someone on full time. And a lot of people presume that it would be somebody younger than me, but actually I'm looking into somebody a lot older than me who has more experience and that can teach me extra things in terms of what I'm doing already at the moment. Doing her upper body too long. Oh god, this is just gonna have to be one of those candid moments where it just doesn't work. Okay, this is the last time I'm doing it. If it doesn't work, we'll just have to do it next time. If I had more time, then I would like to colour them in, but usually with wedding dresses, and that being the majority of the stuff that I do, you can't really colour them into white, so I just leave them in blank. Usually with my illustrations, if I had more time, I would like to make them more of a piece of art, but it's always like a good idea to have a rough sketch of what it is you're doing. Especially sometimes with your clients, that some people can't imagine what it is that you're trying to put onto paper, so I don't think what I just said made sense. I studied fashion design. This was always like my final end to the journey as to where I wanted to be. I get a lot of people asking me actually, you know, like young girls who want to start up in fashion or set up in business. It was never really an option for me to go down and work for a designer in London. The fashion industry itself for a Muslim girl isn't really appropriate. I went on to an internship there and you become really distant from your family, and in the long run you end up losing your identity when you're there, so I always knew that I would never be able to go back and that I would need to do something for myself. But it was a struggle, let's just say that, to start off with. But now, alhamdulillah, it's going well. First and foremost, it's important to state that anybody who really has a dream in doing something can achieve it, but it does require a lot of hard work and a lot of time away from family and friends. And to be honest, it's really difficult in the sense that if you don't have a family unit who is there to support you. I mean, when I use the word support, it doesn't mean that it needs to be in terms of financial support, just in terms of mentally supporting you do what it is that you want to achieve, because without that you end up feeling quite isolated and very alone, and that's how it initially was for myself. My family was there, but there's only so much that you can ask of them to help you with. But in my eyes, for example, I'm sure there's never really anyone out there who didn't get to where they wanted to get to by like pursuing to keep trying. Like, you might fail once, but if you keep trying, you're not going to end up failing consecutively. God, now I feel quite philosophical. No, but I feel really emotional. It's taken me back to the beginning of things. I mean, when I initially set up, I saved a lot, and I juggled doing this with like a retail job on the side, just so that I knew that at the end of the month, if I didn't have any clients, I would have some kind of financial income coming in to support me, just to cover my overheads and my rent. And thinking back to that now, yeah, it's really emotional. I wouldn't be surprised if I started crying. But when girls ask me how you kind of get into it, I do believe that it's good to have the experience and not to necessarily go into it just because you think it's something cool or something that everybody else seems to be doing. I think that's the wrong way to go about going into something. I definitely feel like people who know that they've wanted to do it for a very long time and have studied for it, and I don't know how I'm trying to say it, but if it makes sense to you, a lot of people now, especially young girls, probably around the age of 16, 17, or even in their early teens, they all of a sudden have that idea that pops into their head that they want to do something for the sake of it being cool. I don't think that's the right attitude to have to go into something, because there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, so you'd require that drive to actually pursue it, as opposed to you having this idea that it's quite easy or it's going to gain you some kind of popular status or something. I don't think I even answered the question. So what we're doing at the moment is what we call the 12 stage of the dressmaking process, and this is the mock-up of the finished dress, but in almost scrap fabric. It's not scrap fabric, but it's just quite basic fabric where you can form the tailoring around the shape of the individual client, and then from here you can see all the markings on it. So this basically makes up the outer edge of where the pattern should reach, and then the extra bits I'm adding on, which is the seam allowances, which I'll then cut down to size, which will give me the correct size of the client. Where you can see the markings on the different pieces. So what I have in front of me at the moment is the sleeve. So you'll see quite a messy scribbled green line. This is where the marking has been taken place on the actual client. So it's formed around the client's hand, and then it's pinned on, and then it's drawn on. So that's a rough edge to where the edge of the seam is for the pattern. Now, the purple drawn lines on the outside of what I've just marked on now are what we call the seam allowance. So where you see the excess is where the purple line is drawn. So all this here is the extra, which I'll then need to cut off from either end, which then leaves me with the seam allowance, which is this bit. So once this is removed and this is removed, the fabric will then fall into place where you position the purple lines on top of each other, and then the sewing line becomes where the green line is here. So you have the extra, and then you have the exact width of the fabric that needs to be left. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut off the excess. The green line on the inner part will need to be redrawn again so that it's a straight line. But as long as the outer edges meet, then once this is sewn up together on the sewing machine, you'll have a guideline to follow anyway, so it'll come out straight. Now we just need to cut off the excess from the bottom, and then we have a finished sleeve pattern. Okay, so this is a corded lace, and I'm folding it so that we can cut out the sleeves. Now, this part is quite important actually, because the way that you place the pattern means that you'll utilise as much of the fabric as possible. Because the last thing that you want to do is to place the pattern in an odd way, which leaves you with a lot of scraps on the outside. So it's always good to play around with it first to see how you can utilise the fabric to its maximum capacity. Now, the edge of the sleeve I've cut completely to the green line because this one doesn't actually need it to be folded. So if you remember, we added on the seam allowance to the edges of the sleeves. However, with the bottom edge of the sleeve, we've taken off the seam allowance because the bottom of this sleeve has a scalloped edge, so it won't need to be folded and sewn, so it can be left as a raw edge. And that can be placed towards the edge of the fabric, like this. But what we're going to do is, where this piece lies, this is where the centre of the sleeve is. Now if you can imagine this is on someone's sleeve, the scallop here will end up coming in onto someone's hand like this, and ideally that's not the best way to position it. Ideally what you do want is to have this falling on the sleeve so that it's more flattering. So we're going to have to move up the pattern piece along to here. So now that's lined up with the scalloped centre of the oval shape in the centre of the sleeve. And now we need to pin it on. Now we're left with this extra here, which is going to go to waste, but it needs to be done to create the desired effect at the end. Something that people probably don't know is that I don't actually feel any form of satisfaction once I've given the dress away. Actually, I feel quite nervous that, not that something's going to go wrong on the wedding day, but I don't feel that sense of, how do I put it? I don't feel 100% satisfied till I've actually seen my client in her wedding dress. That's what actually gives me peace of mind, to know that I've executed a job well and I've actually seen the dress in the environment that it was made for, which is the big day the client has been planning for quite a long time. It's a strange feeling, because to me the job isn't finished when I hand the dress over. The job is, to me, is finished on the wedding day when I actually see those pictures, and that's when the dress genuinely comes to life, and I feel, I can't describe the feeling. It's quite a priceless feeling, and it's something that just, it's that feeling that keeps me going and wanting to reach that day where I can see where it's a great deal of appreciation. I mean, for a bride to come to you for her wedding dress is one thing, but for them to even remember you on the day that they're celebrating is something a lot more special than them coming to you in the first place. It almost makes, it just makes the whole experience complete for me to actually start out with them from the beginning. And like, a lot of my clients do invite me to their wedding days, and when I can, I'd love to go, because it's just, it's something surreal when you have fabrics and the garments so close to you and you're working closely with them every day. It's so different to when you actually take a step back and you see the finished product in front of you. Nothing really compares to that as I'm working on it, and I think that final scene to me is I don't think there is a word for it. It's just a load of emotions which I'm feeling at the moment because I'm thinking about it. I think my smile explains it, doesn't it? When I think of a word, I'll tell you. Being a fashion designer has a very weighty stereotype where the minute you say that, people think that, you know, you spend your time doing a lot of fun things, really relaxed things, but it's actually, it involves a lot of hard work, particularly if you're working for yourself. I think a lot of people have expectations from it which come across as not being something which is very difficult, I would probably say. But actually it requires a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and it's quite tough, particularly with the amount of competition that's around. Before doing this, I actually did work in a fashion house, and don't expose too much of my secrets, but you are exposed to a lot of things, and the fashion industry is what it is, and for those who have seen The Devil Wears Prada, it is very much like that. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and you'll find that to make it in the fashion industry, you don't have that normal networking where, for example, if you're working in a firm, it's about very formal meetings with people. In the fashion industry, it's more about who you know on a personal basis. Now, that personal basis, 99% of the time, crosses that line between what a Muslim girl holds in her own values, and it really becomes a confusion in someone's head as to how far they can actually go to get to where they want to be. I'm sure I don't need to state what goes on in terms of networking to create a circle of friends. I'm going to say friends, they're not friends, they're just people that you meet who are going to get you to that next step, that next goal that you're trying to get to. But let's just say these social meetings take place in clubs, take place in bars. It's nowhere that a Muslim girl is going to feel comfortable, and it's nowhere that is going to take you down a path to success. You might become successful in the fashion industry, but you will lose your values, you will lose sight of your family, who your real friends are, because that... What I'm trying to say is it's not a very nice world to be in, and for somebody who wants to go into fashion, it's really important that they know these things, because to set up by yourself is very difficult. I mean, even finding a job with a fashion house in London is difficult in itself, but it's easier than setting up by yourself. But then the minute you have that job, and because of the fact that it's taken you so long to get it, you will do anything to go far in the role that you've taken, and doing anything doesn't necessarily benefit you as a Muslim. Talking from my own experience, when I was in London, it taught me a lot, and it taught me a lot for the benefit of growing my business, but it also taught me how you can get sucked into things to reach what it is that you desire, and what it is that you want isn't necessarily good for you. I mean, I can say these things because I've been there, I've experienced it, and I've very much lost sight with who I was, I guess. So that was my driving force behind wanting to set this up, because I go by my rules, I go by what suits me. I don't need to do things to please people because I want to become successful. I think there's so many different ways of becoming successful, and if you're just focused on what it is that you actually want to achieve and do that well, then I don't think anything's going to stop you. I mean, you'll face a lot of difficulties along the way, but that goes for anything that you do. Nobody gets anything.
supersonique, magnifique, très très cool et très très chic. 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 Supersonique, magnifique, très très cool et très très chic. Supersonique, magnifique, très très cool et très très chic. 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 C'est pas mal ça.
Oh, shoes. Where are they? Oh, yes. Thank you. We can have that as an outtake.
Yeah.